Hey, what's going on, ladies and gents? I'm happy to be here today. It's been a long time since I've done a Q&A. We've got like 300 or 400 months worth of questions to catch up on. So let's jump in. Let's do it. Yeah. Hey, Jesse, when you use AirPods to mix, do you use a specific mode like transparency, ANC, or none of the modes on? Recently, I bought your mixing course. I enjoyed it so much to know that I can really achieve great results with the buddies. I like that. I've never thought of them as little buddies, my little air buddies. Air buddies. I saw Airbud 1. I saw Airbud 2. I never saw Air Buddies. Yeah, I've used all of them. When I was mixing outside, remember that? I was having to use noise canceling all the time. I don't really believe that it changes the effect. At least for me, the EQ, everything managed to stabilize. The thing that changes is you lose that just sense of being in the outside world. You get kind of sucked underwater. Just get sucked. And that can feel uncomfortable for a while. But in my case, when there were contractors outside, like buzz sawn, band sawn, circular sawn, it's friggin' annoying. So I put the noise canceling on and we're good to go. Was waiting for this. By the way, when are you gonna drop your next plugin? Mixland Channel Strip. Got a nice big update for you guys. We've been working a long time on this one. It's been a long time, but let me tell you, it's coming. Them boys coming.
Them young boys coming. They are down 3-2, but they send the series back to Los Angeles for Game 6 on.
So I can't show you the plugin just yet, but I could show you a session that I'm working on. This is a song I'm composing, writing, and mixing to demonstrate the product, and you can kind of hear what it's sounding like, even though you don't know what the plugin is yet. So let's check it out. You did George R. Love her stuff. Great vibe on those. Dora. Yeah, I mixed Dora the Explorer. No, Dora Jar. And I mixed this project. Comfortably in Pain. Amazing. It's Random would be the record to check out. Super fun. That was a big turning point for me because I was still struggling to find a way to get distortion and texture and saturation to the level where I wanted it to be. I wanted to get really expressive with that. And at this point, like what, 2021, I think is when I did this, I was still a very clean, very surgical EQ style mixer. Just like, I did for like ever. That was my exercise. It was just like, every mix was just like EQing. I'm a master of EQ. I'm going to clean this up. The resonance, everything's going to sound like a perfect thing. And on this project, I was like, no, I should just distort. They wanted me to distort stuff. Like, let's go for a crunch. So this is a very crunched out, and you can feel in the choruses, it's like, bum, 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 bum. So I was finding ways to saturate and get everything crunched down, but also get the kicks to just blow out, right? So it was a lot of saturation followed by transient shaping after the saturation, which I think is like the ultimate secret weapon. Awesome. Are those membranes mass-loaded vinyl? Yeah, the back wall that you guys have seen on the very last video we just did, the back wall is the mass-loaded vinyl tuned membrane traps in the very back, as well as in these front corners behind these DA9s. And yeah, I really couldn't tell you what the deal is and how they kind of work. There's this awesome Discord. It's the Live with Matt Rad Discord, where all these guys that are into acoustics and monitoring and all of these cats have like built these types of rooms with the assistance of Gerhard, this other guy, Rory, the great mastering engineer, acoustics master is up there. And all these guys know what they're talking about. And I tune in and it's just like way over my head. Like I don't know. I'm into like educating myself on certain things, right? But like, this isn't one of those areas that just like tickles my fancy. It tickles my fancy to experience it and just enjoy it. But I rely on those kind of guys to like come up with the plan, hand it over to me. I'll build the stuff. I'm handy enough. I get my fancy gets tickled building stuff. Like I love to do that. I'm also learning chess right now. I'm learning how to play chess. That has been incredibly fulfilling and satisfying. I'm working on triads on the guitar, some kind of Larry Carlton-esque, like just some jazz modes. That's fun. I've been working on polyrhythms on the drums. There's some things I like learning, but yeah, acoustics, panels, I'm not going to be the guy to have the expert stuff on that. Have you thought about getting a PSI Audio C214? It might help you with the low end. So these are those, I believe he's talking about the active bass traps. And everybody I've talked to says that these just don't work. But I haven't personally tried it. I'm also just not interested in trying it. The room is just where I want it to be. How does the Johns Manville R19 compare to the Pink Fluffy? Same stuff, different manufacturer. It's just, and it's not pink. What is your computer keyboard trackpad thing called? This is the Bullet Train Express keyboard platform. And it's simply a 3D printed piece of whatever that houses the Apple Magic keyboard and the Apple Magic trackpad. And it's awesome because, you know, I can just sit here, I can mix without a standing desk, or I can use my little Tubi, I can do that, or I can sit with it in my lap. And people are like, man, how do you do that? Well, it's super easy, you guys. This is literally, have you ever sat with a laptop? This is a laptop minus the screen. Look at it, just imagine. Oh, it is, oh my gosh. It's literally the same size. It feels like a laptop in here. And all of us have walked around with a laptop. You like walk around, you hold it with one hand, you flex that freaking bicep, and you just like, hey, you just walk up to anybody at a party, or because you're bringing your laptop to a damn party. You just walk up like, hey, how's it going? Well, hey, Jassy, AirPod Pro 3 just dropped. What's your take on it as an audio engineer? Well, my take, and the entire premise of the Mixing with AirPods course, what's it actually called? Mobile Mixing Masterclass, link in bio. The whole premise is that you should use what you've got and learn how to find the boundaries of your monitoring system so you don't have to be swindled by companies that release products all the time and try to convince you to buy things all the time. My take is don't buy the new AirPods Pro 3, because if you have the Pro 2s, I mean, these are great, and you already know them so well. It's my understanding that they've changed the sound a little bit of the new ones. I would be weary of, you know, changing it up. Like, I really know, I mean, it's why I don't change my monitors. Like, I know there's nothing better than these, except the MF 2.1s, which I can't shell out that kind of money. Like, I just can't. I'm like a criminally frugal individual. There are just more responsible ways to spend the money that we have, or the money we don't have. And honestly, a lot of the time, especially when you got 2 kids like me, there ain't no extra money around. There just isn't. So not even, yeah, especially not for stuff like this. I won't be buying them. God forbid something bad happens to my AirPods. Please, please hold on. Hold on. You got this. Yeah. Okay. How can you use earphones? Is the session in 16-bit 45? That question, yeah, maybe. I think I was mixing an old session in 16-bit 44.1, which is a vibe. It's a vibe. But this is how I use the AirPods, you guys. This is what people ask. I go up here to Sound Source, which is a third-party app for like $80. You can get this. And, you know, instead of Symphony IO Thunderbolt for my output, you can just go down and just hook up the AirPods as the output. Or if you want to hear just Pro Tools, you go boom, Pro Tools output, AirPods, whatever it might be, right? And the other cool thing with Sound Source is you can put any plugin you want on your output. So right now, you can see I have Pro Q3 engaged, and that is my current tuning for this system. But yeah, you know, doing a dB up at 3K, because I've just been sort of undertreating that area lately, and I wanna hear a little more of that. It might be the NS10 guy in me where I want to hear a little more that I'm used to, and this is just a personal decision. And then the room has some wacky stuff going on at like 90 on my left speaker, so I'm adding a little bit there, and a little bit on the right speaker at 66, and then just an overall 5 dB up at like 50 hertz, which is something I've always done on these speakers just to get it a little more dense in the low end. Otherwise, I would be just trying to add way too much low end. I just need to feel a little bit so I know where to put things. And that's how I've assessed my boundaries, and that's how I've tuned the system to make sense for me. Interesting take on the DIY versus ASC tube traps. Other than durability, what do you think is the exact difference in performance between, okay, so between, making the tube traps, like I used to have that build guide. Chris Weingarten, my buddy over on the East Coast, completely reverse engineered the ASC isothermal tube traps. And he sent me this little instructional. I was like, oh, cool, let's team up. Let's put this together. Let's make like a guide, and we can give it out to people, and anybody can do it. And the difference in performance is nothing, zilch. There's no difference in performance whatsoever. But the difference in durability is everything. Like I moved studios 3 different times. I had those tubes in a bunch of different rooms, and they just fell apart after a while. They're at various people's houses now. I don't own any of those tubes that I built. They're just huge too. They were 27 inches in diameter. To my knowledge, it's the biggest set of tube traps that have been built. I haven't seen anything even close to that. And, for 27 inches, I just feel like it's so much more effective to do, a Gerhardt design where you've got some membranes and some P12s in front of it. Like together, that's 27 inches back there. And it's so much more effective at controlling and eating up the low end than the tube traps were. Tube traps is 703 air gap, maybe some dense, fluffy material in there, but then another 703 at the other side of the wall, air gap. 703 only does so much, you guys. It just doesn't go down deep, 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 deep. So, all right, let's keep moving here. Jesse, where did you get the Mutt and Shipley samples? Well, you can, I don't think the source would enjoy if I were to divulge that information. But what I've been doing lately is using AI to extract the drum stems from certain recordings. And I like to go through certain songs and find one shots. Or like, man, I love that room sound, or like that room of that snare. And sometimes I'll start there. I'll extract just the room, and then I'll put it into Pro Tools. And maybe I'll do like isotope rebalance, where I can just kind of get a little more drum out of it. And maybe I'll use mid-side and transient shapers to take out the initial hit and just get even more of the room. And I'll add a reverb. And so I use starting points to, and then I kind of process them further to make unique sounds that just help me get more splash, more bloom, more explosion, and more life out of these snares. It's been, speaking of life, it's been like my life's work lately to get a drum sound, to find a sound. Like it's like I'm trying to find my identity right now in this obsessive chase for drum tones. And it's been a really fun journey so far, man. Not every kick sample has the right amount of low mids or mids. How do I know what the right amount is? And then skate, hi-hats, bass, melody. First I struggle with the first stage kick. Yeah, it's different for everybody, but for me, I use the Manny Marroquin approach of just like getting the mix started with the feeling of the low end, with the system turned up super, super loud. I want it to feel like a club PA or like a small room. Last week I saw this band I work with, RC Drive. I saw them down at the Basement in East Nashville. And it was great. The kick, everything could have felt a little bit louder, but like the kick, it really just had that immediacy. I had that nice sub push, and then, the click was up top. It was placed really nicely. Hats off to the sound guy. Apparently he's new. He's like just learning to mix, but it was like, dude, you clearly get it. Like really nice job. But yeah, I like to turn it up super, super loud and find out where that is. But as far as finding out where the boundaries are, I mean, check your references. But it's really a process of repetition over years and years and years and years of doing it in a space that you're getting used to, and then going out and hearing the results in the real world. But ultimately, even more important than that, just like forgetting what it sounds like, revisiting maybe weeks or months or years later and being like, oh, I underdid it, or it's just an accumulation. It happens slowly over time. There's no substitute for time spent doing this. Mastering your craft, exercising, flexing your muscles, skill building, skill building, all of these things, man. This craft takes time. And I think that's why it's so addictive and deeply satisfying for all of us, because you're able to enter this kind of detached, meditative state of focus, where you're digging in, you're having fun, you're challenged, but you're getting this satisfying response of sound that hits you in a certain way, makes you feel something. We're just tweaking vibrations ultimately. Man, it's weird. What a weird thing to be into. Where can I purchase this template and the related tutorial material? How can I get access to it? Course link in the description. Check it out, my brother in Christ. Very cool, Jesse. Are there any other limiters that you're digging these days? Yeah, the AL1 from Natural. Hey Jesse, do you ever use a multiband compressor on the master? And if you did, how would you approach it? You know, I used this setting recently on Pro Q4, Dynamic Smiley Curve, and they have another one called Dynamic Smiley Curve Stereo. And this was really interesting. This gives you that kind of Serban-y thing. Like, you know, people think about Serban as this ultra clean mixer, like, oh, it gets really loud. And I mean, to my ears, it's just because it's wiggly. There's like rubber band, multi-band, like C4, C6 compression going on all across the spectrum. It's just riding the mix so that everything is just nice and easy, and so that everything's able to fit into the next stage of loudness within their chain. So this is a cool way to get it. I put this on for a recent pop mix with this artist I'm very, very excited about. But ultimately, it's just sort of robbed from the intensity of the punch. Like, I don't know. So I like this stuff on vocals, but that's what I'm learning now is like, I'll do that kind of processing on vocals and like mid-range harmonic instrument buses, but like kick and bass, let me leave that alone. I don't like the feeling of a bass getting compressed downward. I want a bass to push outward. I want it to blast, open up the speakers. I don't like what happens to the mid-range when a kick is just being compressed down. It sucks. So sorry to be super overtly negative here, but I'm dealing with masters this week that have come back and they sound like that. And it's like, dude, if I wanted the kick to sound like that, do you not think that I would have done that myself? Do you think I not would have? I'm capable of turning on the suck button all by myself. Trust me, I have 99% of my mixes I've ever done, I'm not a fan of either. But like, if you think that we wanted the mix to sound like that after you master it, why wouldn't I have just done it? It's just when masters come back and they change the sound and they just fart it out to make it sound louder. I'm just like, dude, do you not think I made this mix as loud as it could possibly go? And then you think you need to go, oh man, I get crazy. Man. Okay. Back to Happy Land. Here we go. Clipping after limiting? Yeah. I mean, why? What are you going to do? Clip before limiting? Because then you're just hitting the clipper really hard. Here's the thing, guys. You got a peak. Clipping shaves the peak. Literally cuts the top off of it. Limiting smushes it downward. Round, right? Think about like a block of cheese. You could slice the cheese off and throw it away, or you could smush it down with a compressor. So clip it, you want to limit first and round off that sound so you're feeding your clipper a more like a friendlier signal. Then the clipper can actually work harder and get way more level because you've kind of compressed before going into the clipper. Do you still use the P331? Yeah, the Whitestone. I have 2 of them. I'm trying to sell 1 of them right now. I just don't need to. So if anybody wants that, just hit me up. Have you found something in the box that can compare? Unfairchild. As soon as you turn on the Unfairchild, those transformers are engaged and it gives you that weight, that octave below, that undertone underneath. Everything's lifted. Another one that I'm loving is this freaking thing. If you put this guy on, put the low down here and then just sort of NF to taste, like that makes the frequency response flat so that it's not like adding low end, but like it definitely, the distortion of it, you know, there's some THD going on in it and it does lift. You get that transformer bump in the low end, just like in the Whitestone. And this has great tube emulation. This thing is really, really, really special, man. Sweet. Next question. Jesse, I'm currently on some NS10s and Amphions. I heard you were also in the Amphion phase. How do the Strauss NF3 compare with the big Strauss? I want to move on from NS10s. Now I've tried to make my Amphions work, but I realize over and over that they make me way worse than on the NS10s. Worse translation, worse recalls. So I'm thinking, 8225, sound different in many rooms. I've heard them and they were really okay, super long question, but there's a few questions in here. Do NS10s have a place in the modern workflow? How do the Amphions compare to the little Strauss Nearfields? How do the little Strauss Nearfields compare to the big ones? Let's set this aside for a minute. Let's get real, y'all. Once upon a time, I had the Amphion 118s. That was the flavor of the month back in 2018. I used them for almost 2 years. It was a good vibe. It was a great foray into the world of like passive monitors that had a more thoughtful design than just this like active DSP craziness, whatever. I went to those from Barefoot, so it was like definitely a nice step up. The thing that bothered me about the 118s was that they had a very cloudy, resonant mid-range, like 400, 500. It was just this wooiness. Could have been my desk. I had this dumb spaceship desk at the time. But then I trashed that. I got rid of that. Everything got better. You guys can see that here. I had the original Jesse Ray no disc setup. No disc setup. The deskless setup was with those 118s on little stands. It was cool. But then I got the Strauss SENF3s, and it was just better in every way, just easier to work on. The most notable thing was just the microdynamics, like just the way just the speakers would just trigger a pulse with every little, like, you know, it's just amazing. You can hear just the punchiness and the subtle nuances of rhythms. They're just incredibly sensitive with microdynamics. You know, changing your attack and release times, which normally would maybe, I'd really have to crank on those knobs to sort of hear the differences. I was just able to hear extremely minute differences in rhythm and timing with the speaker like that has just such accurate microdynamics and really, really low distortion. And when I say distortion, I'm not meaning that a speaker like sounds like there's a fuzz box or that it's distorted, but the distortion on speakers, rather, to me, it clouds things like that, like microdynamics and transient response and the ability for those things to just, you know, do stuff like that and push sound out and related to time domain and all that crap as well. So, it was just overall, in every single regard, it was a better speaker than the 118. And then comparing the NF3, which is the Strauss Nearfield, to these big ones, these MF4s, we're talking about just a very, very, very big difference in distortion. You know, that ScanSpeak driver on the NF3 is really incredible, and that speaker just is great. But Nearfields, just because of their size, they just have limitations. They're not going to be able to go down as deep into the low end, so you have to implement a sub. And implementing a sub is incredibly difficult and is just never really done properly. The only time I've ever had it set up in a successful way was with the help of Gerhard. He's helped me to kind of integrate a sub into that system when I had the NF3s and when I had the 118s before that. But having these super big midfield monitors, you know, the lows of the low driver, it's a two-way, low driver and a high. The low goes all the way down into the subs, down to like 20 hertz. So you're not having to implement a sub, which is really nice. So you're not, you know, adding a crossover point and creating all this phase shift across the entire spectrum and just sort of jacking up the frequency response that way. So it's really, really pure. And these drivers are not an off-the-shelf driver like the ScanSpeak that Jürgen used in the NF3s, right? These are a completely custom driver. You know, he put like his life's work into developing and this amazing driver. It's custom, it's not off the shelf, nobody else has it in their speakers, because to Jürgen, in his opinion, there was no driver that existed that would produce a low enough distortion response, you know, in this, he needed to make it, which is something that no other manufacturers are doing. Everybody's choosing off-the-shelf components and putting them together, designing a crossover, designing the enclosure, putting all the stuff together, you know, just sort of like a a la carte selection of things and then just assembling them and then putting, you know, leaving it all within a price range and then selling it. Jürgen's like, nope, I'm not doing it for that. I'm not like trying to be a mass market thing. I like truly just want to make the best thing that exists. That was his goal. Just so he could like experience what it sounds like just to be in the room in front of these speakers. And it's unbelievable. And same thing with the horn, the top end. People say like horns don't sound good. It's like, okay, yeah, you've heard the Uris from the 90s, like what, some Ocean Waves or whatever. What else? Like, and it's just different. This is just not your kind of horn. You can't write it off. Yeah, these are really, really special. So I'd say the biggest difference between the NF3 to the MF4s or the MF 2.1s, the big ones, is you're getting that extension in the low end, but it's way lower distortion, less resonances, just overall cleaner thing. And the top end is so different, you know. That little dome, I don't know if it's a dome, beryllium, or whatever it is on the NF3. Generally, those types of tweeters have a grainier, sandier, like just a more aggressive type of sound. And these are just this is the most open top end I've ever heard. It's unbelievable. It's awesome. It's just so awesome. I love these. NS10s, I think, then he asks, like, do I need something else in addition to NS10s? I would say yeah. Like, it would be really difficult for me to get a competitive modern mix while working on just NS10s because of just how resonant they are. And like, I can balance a recording like nobody's business on NS10s, but like as far as like finding a resonance at like 430 hertz or just hearing, like, it's nice to have a hi-fi system that's just giving you just clean information where the speakers don't exist, and like you can really just hear, there's no guesswork. You can hear where something's mucky, you can hear where it's whistly. Like a lot of the time with NS10s, it's like, God, the speakers just sound that way. So like, how do I know if when I'm pulling the resonance out, I'm not just, you know, responding and reacting to the actual character of that set of speakers itself? So it can be really confusing. And everybody that you're competing with is working on hi-fi monitors these days. So like, give yourself an unfair advantage. Have a set of incredible hi-fi monitors. And I don't mean like hi-fi world monitors, but like give yourself a set of high resolution modern speakers that extend deep into the lows, high into the highs, because NS10s tend to be a little more band passed, right? You've got no subs and no extreme high end either. So it's just, it sort of ends up being this ball of mids. Plus they have a huge, 7.5 dB spike at 1.6K. So it's just band passed and then a huge spike in the mids as well. So it's just, whoo, it's a mountain that maybe you don't want to climb, but we'll say I love the NS10s. A couple more NS10 questions here. Do you like your NS10s vertical or horizontal? I like them vertical because most of the time the tweeter would be too close to the surface that they're sitting on. So I like them vertical, and I like them in that, oh, they're not over there anymore. I turned my head out of habit thinking they were there. They're not. They're back there behind that wall now. I like them together. The Andrew Morey sort of boombox setup. I think that tends to give them the most low end. It helps the low end couple and just throw more strength and kind of prioritize a little more low end in the sound. I tried them spread out recently, and I'm just kind of the opinion currently that just sucks. It just sounds like very scooped and harsh and mid-rangey with no bottom. It's just not fun. I'm so used to them being together, smack dab together. And for that purpose, I don't need the imaging to be wide. I already have a reference that has like the most unbelievably perfect imaging known to man. So, when I'm checking on the NS10s, it's just for sort of a different thing. What's the best setting for the CLA 10, the tweeter adjustment on the back? I believe it's 10 or 11 o'clock, somewhere in there. But listen to reference material and just place it where it's going to be right. And then after you've tuned that, after you've done some mixes, if you find you're over brightening or you're over dulling things out, always revisit that. You may need to recalibrate your reference point. It was Eric Valentine recently was saying, he was like, man, my system he had dialed in quite a bit of low end to get things feeling where he thought he was comfy, but actually his recent mixes were just a little light in the low. He was not working the low end enough as a result of just hearing too much. So even when you go in with the right intentions, thinking it's going to be right, sometimes you just got to revisit and just put things back. And it's just a constant thing until you get it dialed in, man. So speaking of Eric, you and Eric Valentine both have crunched dust caps in your Strausses now. Yeah, not anymore, man. I fixed it. Somebody on here, thank you to whoever suggested this. There's a shop vac technique where you can put the shop vac on, and I tried this a whole bunch, and I was moving it around and trying to suck out the dent that was in the dust cap of these amazing woofers. It wouldn't work, but it turns out if you create a tight seal, put it on there, turn the power of the shop vac off, and then turn it on, off, it the pressure tight kind of suction was able to just suck it back out, and we sucked it out. And I learned how to do that trick, and so I went back to a few of my sets of NS10s that have the woofers punched in too. and I fixed it. So thank you. What amp do you use with your Strauss monitors? Thinking of getting the NF3 eventually. Yeah, get the NF3s. If I didn't have these, I'd have the NF3s. I'm still thinking about getting some NF3s for travel. I also want to get a pair that my dad can have up at his house in Minnesota, because I think anyone making music who doesn't have the means to get the big Strauss monitors should probably just get those little ones, because I think that it's better than anything else out there at the price range. PMC and ATC suck. Total rubbish. It's just my opinion. But you do you, man. We all have different ears, different DNA, different taste, different aesthetic, different physical geometry of our ears. I mean, like literally, we hear sound differently, we perceive it differently. We want different sounds. We want different styles. So some people, PMCs just speak to their soul. And if you're one of those mother frickin' weirdos, get down with your bad self. I ain't gonna do a damn thing about it. I'll just see you over there using them. Like, oh, what is the matter with the world? What's happening here? What's happening? Okay, great video, Jesse. I'm interested to know how you'd compare your experience of the low end on your AirPods versus the Strausses in that incredible room. Is there a difference in clarity? Wow. Yeah, there's a difference in everything. You know, we're talking about 15-cent components built into AirPods versus, you know, components that are literally thousands of dollars. And not that there's always a correlation between price but I mean, it does, in a lot of scenarios, the price of something does tell a story. It's like, well, how difficult was this to manufacture? How sought after are the components? How high quality are the components? You know, there's, at least in this scenario, there, you know, and in a lot of scenarios in life, you do get what you pay for up to a certain extent before diminishing returns. I mean, cue the argument of like hi-fi forum cable arguments, right? Talking about like $100,000 power cables. Like, get the hell out of here. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm not going down that road. I'm not that guy anymore. I was drinking that Kool-Aid for a minute in 2019, 2020. That's how Gerhard and I met, actually. He hit me up. He was like, hey, I know you like hi-fi. I'm making these power cables. You want to try them? And I was like, okay. And I tried them. I was like, these are the best cables ever, which I believe technically, there is a difference, right? And there's quite literally the proven differences. I'm getting way off track, but dude, I just can't hear him. I don't know. Yeah, I'm just a big dumb idiot, folks. All right. Difference in clarity, yeah. Dude, the Strauss, being in that room, and being in this room now that the sonics are really figured out in here, especially with the drum set here nearby, it's like, got all this diffusion in the room. Blah. We're doing a renovation project downstairs, so I had to like clear out the drum room, or the living room moved over to the dining room. We're like redoing a fireplace, putting some built-ins. It's a whole thing. But you might be able to hear them sawing. Do you hear it? Oh, they stopped. Okay. Yeah, being in a room and experiencing sound like that, it's immediate. It triggers this just visceral response. You might get goosebumps. You might just feel really fulfilled and really satisfied. This past weekend, I had my brother and his wife visiting with us, and they sat in here and we listened to, they really love Eagles. So we listened to Hell Freezes Over, the Hotel California acoustic version. And it's funny because I've had people in here who are just like, don't hit play on that. I don't want to hear that. And they were like, oh, dude, play it. And we were all in here just like looking at each other like, oh my God. Like, I've never heard stuff like that. I've listened to this song 1,000 times. I've never heard that detail there. It's really special. It's amazing. That being said, I love AirPods. Like, I get my freaking rocks off with AirPods, man. I mean, I'm into it. Obviously. AirPods mixing course, you know, you guys know I like that. All right, those are some questions from lately. If you guys have any other questions, maybe like a week or two from now, I'll get into kind of showing the measurements of the room. We can get into some of that. If you guys have questions, just ask some more stuff, and we'll rock on from there, baby. Cool. Take care, guys. Peace.